There's little things. Now, this is what I love. Is so you've got this roller coaster, and you've got voices, and you've got volume, but there's also body language. And this is something that's hard for some people. And I say this all the time. If you've been here, you've heard me say this again and again and again. But we go to a church with a pastor who does it so well. He does it so well. He's a master at what he does. Because if you ever just study how he does it, what he does is he like goes over his points and he talks about them, and he breaks all these things down out of the Bible that you've never heard or seen before, and it's amazing, and your mind is blown. And as you're reeling and he's processing with you, when he gets to the point that he really wants you to go home with, he stops, he looks people in the eye, and he says it. And then he keeps moving, he keeps processing, he keeps going, and then when it's time for something important, he stops, he looks people in the eye, and he says it. He's so good at doing that. So for us, what we do is our body language has to be super, super intentional. Because if it's not, you may not know this, but it's really, for a first-time person to be on a platform, you probably have some things that you don't know you do. I have a friend that would lead, when I was growing up in youth group, there was this dude that was on the youth worship team, and every time he would get up and it was his time to lead worship, it was like he wasn't even the worship leader, but it would like come to his solo. You knew his solo was coming because he would just be like worshiping Jesus. He was worshiping the Lord, and then his solo was coming, and he would just grab his little necklace, and he would start to do this like little turn thing, and he would just sing like this during his like verse or his chorus or bridge or whatever it was. Then his part was done, and he'd go back to worshiping. And it was like, oh, man, that's really awkward. Like, I feel awkward watching you. And if I had been a good friend, I would have told him, hey, you do this really awkward thing when you're leading. Now, we all do that. We all have things. Some people, when they talk, they don't even know they do this. But I watch some people, when they talk, they get kind of uncomfortable around big crowds. So they just, like, their feet never stop moving. Like, they just do this thing where their feet are always just kind of shuffling. And it looks like they don't really know what they're going to say, so their feet don't really know how they're going to move. And so you just feel kind of awkward because they just kind of shuffle along. And what they're subliminally telling everybody is that it's not important enough for me to stop and tell you what I'm saying, so you don't need to stop and listen to what I'm saying. And all they have to do is just, okay, plant your feet and tell us the truth. It's really simple. I promise you, it's such a simple fix, but it doesn't come unless you're very intentional with it. You have to be intentional with it. You have to be intentional with what your hands are doing, because you have people who use hands all the time, and they think it's like, I'm not saying use hands, but you just use them intentionally, because I said that one time we did, like one of the very first ones we did, and I show up at a campus the next week, and it's like, hey, kids, how's it going? All right, so God is going to tell you and me that this week he is good, all right? So let's do this. It's like, no, you missed it. Like, let's be intentional with our body language. One of the very first trainings that we did, I tell this story because she's a really good friend for doing this. She's a really good boss for doing this. It was the second one we did, and I had just gotten married, and I wasn't used to wearing a ring. And so as I was walking around, I just kept like fidgeting with my ring. It wasn't that it was loose. It wasn't that it was like weird. I think it was just like my finger was kind of getting sweaty. So like I wasn't used to having a ring on my finger. So I'd be talking to people, and I'd just be sharing, and I just kept fidgeting with it. So afterwards, Pastor Mary came up. She's like, hey, that was so good. I'm so proud of you. I was like, thanks. And she said, one thing, why did you keep messing with your ring? And I was like, what? She said, yeah, like the whole night you just kept fidgeting with your ring. And I said, I did? She said, yeah. I didn't even know I was doing it. I had no idea that I was doing it. But she was so kind just to come up and tell me, like, hey, that was weird. I felt awkward watching you do that, so please don't do that. She's nice. Thank you. So she did that. So when you're getting up on a platform and you're speaking, and we do run-throughs, so it's very important that we do run-throughs, and when we do them, we don't just do talk-throughs, but we try and do it as much and as close as what we're going to do in service. And the reason we do that is because our coordinators and our pastors and our people that are over these platforms are going to watch you, and they're going to be so loving enough to tell you, this is so awkward when you do this. Don't do this. But trust me when I say it's going to help. So we got to be intentional with our body language, because when we're intentional with our body language, it brings kids into our world. Now, it's really good for kids. I love it when we're energetic. Kids love watching you work the stage, and they love watching you be crazy. And our lessons and all of our services call basically for you just to like go home and die after service. Like that's normal. If you don't feel like you just should sleep for 4 days, then you've probably done something wrong, because you're supposed to feel fatigued and tired. You're supposed to. But listen to me. It's got to be intentional. You just got to be intentional.